Audio testing, 1, 2, 3. Lights on, camera rolling, and action.
Welcome to the Scaling Creator Podcast, the one-stop shop that explores problems, solutions, and stories for business-minded creators. I'm Soren Dickens.
And I'm Eriksen Dickens.
We'll be talking about everything from self-discovery, storytelling, leadership, marketing, sales, operations, and finance.
If you like a healthy dose of education mixed with a generous dash of insightful entertainment, prepare for your ears to be pleasured. Oh yeah.
Make sure to check us out at scalingcreator.com and also join our free Discord community.
Scaling Creator launching in 3, 2, 1.
The following content is not intended for all listeners, but we strongly encourage all listeners to listen regardless. Hey, welcome back to the Scaling Creator Podcast. I'm Soren Dickens. I'm here with Bryce Austin, and today we're going to be talking about his journey going from a career in the military, a short stint in law enforcement, and now finding his place as a barber, really living a creator's lifestyle and finding his way with the art of barbering, which is something that I've been learning about recently. Used to get my hair cut at places like Supercuts, and once you start going down the rabbit hole of how you're really supposed to be getting your hair cut as a dude, things really start to just like unfold in front of you. So we'll be talking about that, his transitioning careers and overcoming trauma as a child. Well, thanks for coming on, Bryce. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, dude, for sure.
The time was, it might have been, I don't know, perfect timing. I went into the barber and then you ended up connecting with us right after that.
Literally like 2 days after. Yeah. It was a sign, dude.
That's pretty sweet. So can you tell me a little bit about yourself, what you're doing now, your backstory? I know we both grew up in the Central Valley, right?
Yeah. But where are you from? Where is it?
I grew up in Oakdale.
Oakdale. Okay. Yeah. I'm from a little place called Taft, but I guess the first thing I'll do is start this off like I start off every day. Just like, dude, I'm grateful to be here. Thank you.
Sure.
Honestly, that's really rad. I actually like what you guys are doing. I can tell you guys take things seriously. And like we were talking about before this, like with haircuts, like the details matter, dude. For sure. I mean that.
We appreciate that.
But yeah, dude, I mean, from a small town in the Central Valley, Taft, California, and a lot of people haven't heard of it. It's right outside of Bakersfield. It's a very simple life. I think when you're from a place like Taft, you have your life cut out for you before you even get a chance to say otherwise. Basically, the two main industries there are you're going to work in the school system or you're going to work in the oil fields. Plain and simple. I can say that because that is what both of my parents do and still do to this day. And I just knew that like as a child, I was like, I don't want either of those things. Like none of that sounds like fun to me, but it's just very much that like you don't really get I feel like a lot of people don't get a say in what they're going to do with their lives. Like there's almost no choice involved. I just noticed that early on and I didn't really believe in that.
What were some of the things that you saw in those lifestyles that made you go, well, I'm not sure if this is really the path I'm going to set out on?
Great question. Everything. So honestly, like I just every morning, 5 o'clock, my dad's up, always just seemed so like exhausted. And I just was like, dude, there's got to be more. There's got to be more. Yeah, dude, I don't know. I just never wanted that. Like I'm not like lazy, but I just knew that was like a level of hard work. Sort of like what Jordan was saying on his episode, like use your brain, not your back. Like that. I've always thought that way. Even as a kid, like if there was an easier way to do something, I'm going to do it. Not out of laziness, but maybe I'm just a step ahead. You know what I mean?
There's something admirable about being able to use your back. But I think as times have changed,
which I did. Yeah.
We've been exposed to stuff through social media, the internet, being able to learn things online. We were talking a little bit about reading books and just doing that self-education that maybe isn't as promoted in places like the Central Valley.
And especially like it's important that the time. We're talking about I was born in 1995 until 2013, 14. Like none of this was podcasts didn't exist. Nobody was reading books. The information just wasn't quite available yet. You know, not that the internet didn't exist, but it just wasn't what it is today. And I don't think people will ever really know that unless we live through it. Like I'm assuming we're the same age, right? 28?
26, but gonna be 27 soon.
We're right there, yeah.
Yeah.
Same age. So yeah, definitely that.
What was life, I mean, now that you're living the creative life, what was life like growing up for you? Did you have that creative inspiration as a kid, or where did you find your inspiration from the past?
I don't know how I feel about the word creative, to be totally honest.
Okay.
Maybe I am.
Just kind of like brute force.
Yeah, I think there's a time and a place for both. Definitely. You know, there's something about a warrior in a garden. But it's like, well, I think I didn't want to do the job that like I felt that I was going to be obligated to do forever. And there's something about that life, which is like, it's great if you do that for a living and you make an honest living for your family doing that. That's great. I just knew that that's not what I wanted. I didn't know at the time what I wanted to do. Like I definitely didn't want to be a barber. I didn't even know that barbering was a thing, because a lot of things that kind of the path in a place like in Taft is like you're gonna work at the company your dad works at. You're gonna get your company truck. You're gonna make a fixed salary a year, and maybe it's good, and that's great. And then I know people that do make like a good living, but something about me is like I don't value money like the way that people do. Like it's a thing, sure, like you need it to participate in this life. I get it, but it's not something I value. And people in that sphere, like all they care about is like, oh, this guy makes X amount a year, or oh, he got the new company truck or whatever. And I'm like, dude, I don't care about any of that. I care about your character. Like if can I rely on you? Like, are you trustworthy? Like I don't like money is the thing I value the absolute least. I think maybe that's probably where this all stemmed. And that was all of these thoughts are at an early age too. Like I just knew that there's more to life than money. There's more to life than doing what you're told. There's a time and a place to do what you're told, but I just didn't think that was for me.
Let's talk about your perspective on that concept of getting the new truck and that status that I think a lot of people almost rely on in that environment. I know oftentimes I've found that, and I'm not here to like push down the Central Valley, but there is a conversation always happening around who's doing this, got what, promoted to this job, Johnny's doing this, without the conversation about like, hey man, how's your mental health?
Dude,
or
you nailed it,
you
bro.
know?
You nailed it. And I'm like, seriously, that, like everything you just said, yeah, bro, like it's just that. And I grew up in that environment. That was my household. These are the conversations I grew up hearing. And even as a kid, I was not okay with that. It just, something about it just rubbed me the wrong way. But dude, I could not have said it better myself. There is, and it's almost like the smaller the town, the more status is important to people. And it's really funny in a place like Taft because the cost of living is so low that even the people who are like doing great, by what metric, you know? Like, yeah, you have the nicest house up on the hill. I don't know, dude, it's so weird, but you nailed it. Yeah, like there's such a status thing. And I just never, maybe this is where like the creator thing comes in. I just simply don't believe in status. I believe in character and I believe in loyalty. And quite honestly, people who really like value status and money have none of those things. So if you don't have that, you're not of value to me. Sorry. But it's just the truth.
Did you ever have those conversations with people growing up or feel like you could voice your opinion? Or did you feel like you had to listen to your superiors in terms of like parents, teachers?
Kind of both. So I think when you're a child, you only know what you know. You only know what you've been told. I wouldn't say I was necessarily voicing these things, but I was having these thoughts. So like internally, like, yes, I was voicing these things, but it's not like I'm going to go to school in 5th grade and have this conversation with another 5th grader, right? But I am thinking about this stuff and I'm thinking that I'm just weird. Like, I'm like, why am I thinking about this? And why am I not just like happy the way these other kids are happy, you know? But yeah, I think I was having the conversation internally. Kind of the second part to that was, I think I sort of found like different outlets like skateboarding and stuff. And then you're in these environments, like especially at a skate park where none of that matters to these people. It's crazy. Like people think like skaters are like dirtbags or whatever, but really like it is the most genuine environment you could ever find yourself in because nothing matters. It doesn't even matter how good you are at skating. Like you would think that'd be the first thing, but it's like just your personality. Like how, like, are you funny? Like how well do we all get along? And, but we all have this one thing in common and that's skateboarding. So that was where I really I broke out of that matrix of, I mean, cause there's several within this, but when I broke out of that, the status matrix was when I found skateboarding. That was it for me, dude. Yeah.
So you would say that the lessons that you learned that was the first community or environment that you were put in where you were like, wait, why this system doesn't function the way that my day-to-day life?
100%. Yeah.
Okay.
To answer that question, that's exactly how.
Once you recognized that the skate park was your first environment that showed you a different way, were you always looking for other environments that kind of broke your previous construct? Or how did you navigate that once you saw it? It's kind of like once you've seen it, you can't go back.
So this is sort of freshman. All of this, what I'm about to talk about, is kind of occurring with between my freshman year and my junior-ish year of high school. Prior to this, you know, going back to the story you've been told and, you know, do what you're told. I played sports my whole life. I played mainly baseball. Baseball was a big thing for me, but I didn't do it by choice. That was something that my parents wanted me to do. And dude, I never, ever wanted to. I look back on it fondly because we're going to get to this, but I think playing team sports as a child really does something. It instills something in you that is not in children who don't do this. Plain and simple. So I played in baseball my whole life. I never really quite fit in with the baseball kids because these are kids whose parents have more status. And a lot of your status is defined, and your parent status is defined by the gear they're buying you. Do you have that new helmet that just came out? Do you have that brand of bat that's cool this year? Are you starting? Are you not starting? Just weird. It's weird, bro. But I mean, I'm sure you've experienced that to some degree. I'm invested in that ideology, but I'm questioning it. I'm not like just sold. So now I start skateboarding, and this is where it's conflicting, because I don't fit in with the kids on my baseball team at this point because I'm a dirty skate rat, right? But now I don't fit in at the skate park yet because I'm a pretty boy, rich kid that plays baseball. So you just cannot be both. Like, that nuance just did not exist at the time. I'm like a curious person. Like, I just genuinely I like everything, dude. Like, there's not a whole lot that I'm just like not willing to hear out or be into. So neither party understood that like I could just do both. So yeah, that's kind of where the conflict sort of started. Yeah, within myself.
Did you have anyone else in your life at the time that was split between maybe different communities, or did you really feel like kind of an outsider being there in Taft?
Dude, always an outsider, always. Like, and it's not that I didn't have friends. Like, I had friends, but I just had friends that were like, in these fragments, and none of them ever really knew, because they're like, how could you be friends with us, but you're like cool with them, But I would say though that skateboarding, the community was like my priority, and that was where I always felt like I fit in the most. And it was actually, just to kind of go back to the point of like character and personality, and then even just like, skill on the skateboard, is like you earn that from them. Whereas in the other communities, you don't necessarily earn anything, because it's all of what people perceive of you, not what you can prove. So yeah, in skateboarding, it's the opposite, which was really cool.
Did that community kind of change over time, or once you joined it, did you feel like they helped develop with you and stuff like that? How was that?
It was always pretty solid. But back to the last question about like, did I have anybody that was also going through that same thing, or no? Like, just me. I did not have, my skateboarding friends did not play sports, and my sports friends did not skateboard. Like, it was literally just me. So there was no common ground. Like, it wasn't like I had that one friend that was like, we'd go to baseball practice together and then go skate. Like, that was non-existent. It was just me.
Was that through your entire experience in high school?
Yeah, for sure.
That small town controversy that I think a lot of people who have a broader vision, they go through a similar experience when they're growing up in a small town. They're split between communities.
For sure.
Do you feel like at that time in your life, you didn't really want to just have firm beliefs in like one direction because it didn't really resonate with who you were at the core?
That's really interesting you asked that, because I still live like that to this very day. I'm not super attached to anything. Like, there are things where I'm like, this is who I am, this is how I feel. I'm not fixed. Like, I'm willing to hear the other side of somebody. And I may leave that engagement and still be like, well, I still feel this way, but I wholeheartedly see your perspective.
It's really unique, especially coming out of a place like the Central Valley, where you're almost, like you mentioned earlier on, the path is almost paved for you, and you're expected to go down one of these channels, and you're like, hey, I'm going to actually go that way, away from
100%, dude.
What's laid out in front of me. Well, you ended up going through high school, and then what was after high school?
Yeah, so this is kind of where the fun begins. So maybe we kind of glossed over it a little bit, but yeah, all of the, everything we talked about aside, my life at home, dude, it wasn't bad, but it certainly wasn't great. So like, same thing, like from a young age, I just wanted to go. I just wanted to be wherever that house was. I wanted to be somewhere else. So the skate park, a friend's house, like, dude, just get me out of here. And like, I wasn't like physically abused or anything. I had clean clothes. I was fed well. I had running water. Middle to lower class household. Both parents worked hard. That's great. But something it was really missing was like empathy, was understanding, was communication. That didn't really start to click until I got older and I started seeing the way other families communicated and interacted. And I was just like, this is something I didn't question until actually probably too late in the life. But I was like, I've never, like, I would see like the way my friend's mom would like talk to him. Hey, honey, how was your day? Dude, I've never heard that. Never in my life. Or, okay, bye, love you. Never heard that in my life. So maybe they did the best with what they could with the knowledge that they had at the time. So yeah, that is what it is. But getting into high school, and even probably a little before, the only conversations that really were had between, well, not really conversations, they were pretty one-sided, but it was a lot of, what are you going to do with your life? What are you going to do? What's your plan? I heard that just so often. It's kind of important to note here that they're asking these questions, but at the same time, nothing I'm doing is really good enough for them. Like, I'm not hanging out with the right people. I'm not watching the right shows. I'm not wearing the right clothes that they want me to wear. And it just really feels like nothing I can do is good enough. So I'm brainstorming in high school because I didn't want to leave high school and be unprepared. I see this a lot, especially like many people I come into contact with today, but I didn't want to leave and be unprepared. So I'm thinking of what I can do. And we're going to get to how I got into cutting hair. Sort of a long journey, but I was always like doing different stuff with my hair. I actually won best hair in high school. It's in the yearbook. But I was always doing different stuff with my hair. I was always like fascinated by that form of like self-expression. But I don't know how it was for you in your hometown, but we had one barbershop and it was like just this random like old guy. And he just cranked out like 20-minute cuts. And then that was it. Like, and I only probably got a haircut like twice a year. So doing hair for a living is not only is it not in the path that's carved out for me, it's not even in my head that like I can make a living cutting hair. That's out. So I'm thinking, what can I do not only to like give myself the best shot at like a solid life, but honestly, just to get my parents' approval. Dude, like, how am I going to do something that they're finally going to go, I'm proud of you. Great. I'm glad you decided to do this. So one day at lunch, dude, I think there was like the Army recruiters, like, they come to the high schools and stuff. And I saw them in their uniforms and I was like, whoa, dude, those guys are legit. That's sick. And that's not the oil fields or working at this school. So, maybe that. And I thought, no, I'm not that guy. Because it's important to note that at this time I'm wearing the tightest pants that exist, band t-shirts. I have long hair, nose ring. Like, I'm not that guy. And like, these guys they look solid, I'm like, that's kind of crazy. But one of my good friends that I skateboarded with, his older brother had just joined the Marines, and he so didn't seem like somebody who would do that. He was just like a silly dude, and I was like, whoa, that's sick, dude. Like, if he can do it, like, I could probably do it. And this was like sophomore year. So this seed is planted now. I kind of get through it. I get through high school pretty much towards the end. It was never like approached super genuinely like, hey, son, like, what are you interested in doing in your life? Like, what are your dreams? What are your goals? You can see how I'm at this disadvantage where like, I really want to prove to you that like, I have what it takes to make it in this life. So I'm like, I will join the Army. And now like all these years I'm thinking about it because I know they're not going to pay for me to go to school to cut hair. I know I'm not going to. Like, I don't know how student loans work or anything like that, or at least I didn't. So one day, like, I will never forget this. And like, this is honestly carried with me for so much of my life. I remember my dad coming into my room and he's like, so like, what's your plan, dude? Like, what are you doing? Cause I think I'm probably like a senior at this point. And I was like, finally, dude, like worked up every bit of courage I could to be like, I'm joining the Army. And I'm expecting like those walls to fall down and him be like, dude, that's sick. Even though that's never happened for anything I've ever said, I'm expecting that in this moment. I was like, I know what I'm going to do. I do have a plan. I was like, I'm going to join the Army. And he goes, we'll see, and slams the door and walks out. And I'm like, okay, nothing's going to be good enough, dude. It's all good. Dude, I carried that around like a viral disease for a vast majority of my life.
From a young age?
From the day that happened. Yeah. Well, from a young age, yes. But that was like the pinnacle. That was the moment where it all was like, I'm proving you wrong. And in the event that anybody feels like you do and thinks that I can't do this, I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm going to do this and I'm going to do more. And that was it, dude.
Yeah, it sounds fairly intense, especially coming from the conversation prior when you're talking about growing up and having that condescending attitude coming from your parents, like, what are you going to do? Did you feel like you didn't have like the guidance or encouragement, or what was that like from your perspective as a young kid? You seem to be very aware of what was going on as a young kid. What was that like in terms of communication style with your parents through your adolescent years into your teenage years?
Yeah, so all the above, no guidance, no encouragement. But that's actually really interesting you asked that as well, because there was no communication. Like everything I just said, that was the epitome of the communication between us. I'm really not trying to throw a pity party. I'm really just trying to paint a picture of like, because like I don't feel sorry for myself. I never have. It's just the truth. And I think there's a time and a place for the truth to be told. There just wasn't. It wasn't, hey, Dad, I had a bad day today. No, there was none of that. It was just, I couldn't wait to go to school because school for me was a social thing, dude. Like I didn't care about school. I knew at a young age, I knew that school was just a game and it was just a thing that you do it, you finish it, and you should finish it. Like, and then that's it. And then go on to whatever's next, dude. But like my status in this school is not going to define me like it has defined every generation before me. Like I want to be known for what I did after this and not during this. I don't want to be known as the starting center fielder. I want to be known as Bryce, the dude who achieved all of this after the fact. And that was where I really, really started to pave that road in front of me. Nothing behind me is going to define me. I'm going to set the stage for what's next.
That's a good outlook to be having. It's like as a young kid or teenager. I mean, we're talking about high school. It's kind of like hard to. I'm trying to think back. What was high school like? What was like the average conversation like with family at that time? But it seems like having that lack of communication probably puts you in a position where you had to either figure things out yourself, or did you go to other people, or how did you navigate even just through high school?
Yeah, so like I wasn't totally alone. I was only alone at home. This is why I was saying like I couldn't wait to go to school, because that was where I could be me. That was where Bryce existed, was at school, because this is where my friends were. This is where people I knew were. And I was never like a loner. I never had trouble making friends, or like I always had friends, and I was always cool with everybody. Like,
Gotcha.
Yeah. So it wasn't really something when I was home, I was thinking about it for sure. But when I'm with my friends, like, dude, I'm living, I'm having fun, I'm skateboarding, we're doing whatever kids do. So
I think that's a really good point that you're making too, because I've seen that as well, where sometimes parents will want their kids to do these sports or play these instruments or take these AP classes or apply to these colleges or go get the job with this company, because they can then tell their friends, oh, well, my son has a job here. And back to the conversation about kind of the experience I've had in the Central Valley, oftentimes sitting around tables, it kind of becomes a pissing contest at dinner or family events or family friends you haven't seen in a while. It's never really about who we are at the core. It's always these like externalities that we end up talking about, which is just so bizarre. I remember one time my brother and I were having dinner with an old family friend with our mom, and I'm aware of this at the time. I know it's just going to be, what are you up to now? And so you just throw them a curveball and see how they respond, right? Oh, what are you guys up to? Well, Eriksen and I are just shooting porn.
Yeah.
And they're like, you just throw them a curveball and they're trying to go down a certain rabbit hole, and you just throw a curveball at them and you're like, oh, we're human traffickers.
Yeah,
just
dude, you nailed it.
Like, they're like, what? I'm like, obviously I'm kidding, but they would never have expected that. And it's almost our way of kind of like taunting their narrative that they're trying to play with.
Yeah, flipping the establishment on its head. Dude, you literally nailed it, and that's going to kind of go into the next point here. Yeah, dude, it is in that environment, and it's obviously not something, I'm not saying this is unique to me, because you literally just lined out what I observed my whole life. So it is a thing that exists. And there is something to be said about like parents who want to be genuinely proud of their kids. So when I said that I was going to join the Army, that was what I envisioned being talked about outside of my presence. Or I thought that there would be some semblance of them being proud of that. Non-existent. You can see how this just keeps driving me further and further into this, like, I have to prove myself. Like, I what can I do? I've pretty much exhausted all resources. So, dude, it's definitely that. There is a thing. So it's like, if I felt like they would just be genuinely proud of like what I did, then that would be one thing. But when you can't even get that, it's like, dude, what's the point?
Do you feel like it wasn't high enough status, or what was it about going into the Army
Yeah, dude, honestly, I didn't even think about it like that my whole life until you just said that. Yeah, like maybe I don't think it wasn't part of the narrative. So anything that deviates from that, even something as, I'm not going to say joining the military is the greatest thing or like makes you better than anybody, but just some people hold that to a pretty high regard.
Oh, yeah.
That's something I feel like some parents would be proud of.
Absolutely.
At a minimum, dude. So yeah, maybe it wasn't in the path. So anything that could deviate from that path was just not good enough. Even if it was something as fulfilling as joining the military, like it wasn't what they wanted. So it wasn't good enough, plain and simple.
Do you feel like they had these pre-existing expectations that they had almost married?
Oh,
and
dude.
that they were, anything that was outside of that box would have been failure?
For sure. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really tough. I think a lot of kids struggle with that, where like their parents expect these different things. And what it comes down to ultimately is it's really just a lack of perspective from the parent, because there are so many ways to the top of the mountain, but they've only ever gone one way.
Dude, that's it, bro. And they're scared of you trying something else, maybe not succeeding, but dude, that's literally the point of life, is to try and fail and try again. Like, one of my favorite quotes is rise and rise again until the lambs become lions. Because, dude, what is the point? Like, failure is almost the point of life. Like, what can you learn if you haven't failed? Why would I go the safe route? why would I not inject myself into something completely foreign, seek out the hardest thing I can imagine at this point in my life to not only prove to you, but to me as well. Like, I want to, like they say, like, you don't want to die without any scars. Like, dude, why would you get one life, bro? And like, I knew this as a child, like you get one shot at this thing. So why not just do everything you possibly can?
You mentioned that you're a curious person.
Yeah.
And so there's definitely something that I've noticed with curious people. They're almost attracted to failure because they want that next experience and they want to know, hey, if like I do succeed, what am I going to feel? What am I going to experience on the other side? Do you feel like you've been able to find people now, once you recognize that about yourself, were you starting to be more attracted to people who had that mentality, or did you look for more opportunities for like, hey, where can I fail? Like, where did you go next after high school? And we were kind of talking about.
I don't know if at the time I was aware that I wanted that failure. I'll say this. So like I said, I love movies. Movies are my favorite medium of art, always have been. And I remember when the Batman Begins came out. Dude, this is going to sound like so grandiose, but it's true. And it's like, it's silly, but it really it did something to me. So when that movie came out, at the beginning, he's Bruce Wayne, he's the rich kid, he's whatever. And people have this perception of him because of his status and because of his parents. And then he chooses to go the opposite way. He chooses the hardest thing you can imagine, and he does it. And for his own reasons. And then, so I just sort of took that snippet from that story, and I was like, I want that. Because I know that people have this perception of me of like, the skate park kids, oh dude, your clothes are always clean, you always have new shoes, you always have a new board, like you're a rich kid. But they don't know that what I'm going home to. Like, they don't know that like there's nothing. They don't know that like this is the most genuine interaction I get is with them. I was like, how can I replicate that journey that I saw? And that was it, dude. So right after high school, I moved out, dude. One of my friends at the time, he had an apartment, a very small apartment, 1 bedroom, with this girl that he was dating, and they broke up. I was like, dude, and he like knew my situation. I was like, I got to get out of here, bro. I was like, let's do it. I was like, I'll move in. And he's like, all right, but you got to sleep in the kitchen. So I did. So I moved out. I moved all my stuff out. And surprisingly, like my parents, that was like the one thing they were actually like, I don't know, they were sort of neutral about it, whatever, but it wasn't like a big deal. And then, so I move out. I'm sleeping in a kitchen on a futon, and that lasted maybe 2 months. We may or may not have partied a little too hard, and I think the landlords were like, dude, you gotta go. So we lost that real quick. That was within like 2 or 3 months. So now I'm like, well, damn. So I go back to my parents' house. Dude, was right back at square one. Like, I thought that there would be some semblance of like respect, or like I would get treated like an adult, and that so was not the case. Again, what are you doing? What are you gonna do? What's your plan? It's like, bro, I told you my plan, and you laughed in my face. So, but I still have that plan. I didn't care. I didn't let that like deter me and go, oh, well, fine. No, it actually did the opposite. It strengthened that. So I already had my plan deep in my heart, but my plan was I was going to give myself 1 year to just live my life and to seek out a lifestyle that I've never lived before. Just be uncomfortable, dude. Like, I just wanted to be, in a way, dude, if I'm being honest, I wanted to prove to other people who had a perception of me that I can live another way too and be just fine. Like, I'm not going to let whatever you think about me define me to you. So move back, same thing. And I'm just over it, dude. Like, I think they like made me sleep on the couch. Like, they gave my little brother like my bed. And I was like, dude, I'm over this. So I had 2 really good friends. They were brothers, and they lived with their mom, and she worked full time at a bank. Their stepdad was a police officer, and he worked night shift. So he was sleeping during the day. He was gone all night. And then his mom was like still to this day, like one of the most genuine people I've ever encountered in my life. Like, everything you think a mother would be, it was her. So I was like, I got to get out of here, man. And he really knew my situation. So he was stoked to be like, I'm going to talk to my mom, bro. And like, you're going to move in. Like, I didn't even have to ask him. He was like, you're going to move in. All right, cool. Talks to his mom, comes out of the bedroom. He's like, dude, you're good. He's like, let's go get your So my parents were at work. We took her truck down there, her Silverado. Dude, we loaded up everything that would fit in the bed of my belongings, and we took it to his house. I didn't say anything. I didn't call them. I didn't say, like, I was done, bro. Like, I was like, I'm never coming back to this house ever again. I never did. I move in, and then now it's me, my friend Jacob, his brother Jason, our friend Boston, who I'm actually still really good friends with to this day. So it's 4 dudes. We're all, I think we're 18. Yeah, we got to be 17 to 18. We're probably all 18. So now we're all living in 1 bedroom, dude. So it's 2 beds and then the futon. And I think Maybe Boston like slept on the couch. I'm not sure, dude, to be totally honest. But dude, it was wild. Whatever you can think 18-year-old kids are doing, that's what we were doing. Like we had unrestricted access to a vehicle. We had the fields where most the parties would occur. So no problem getting to those. Like we were pretty intertwined into so many social circles that it was fun. Like we had free reign, dude. Like, so nothing was stopping us. We were just having fun being kids. And that was pretty much my life for that year leading up to the Army.
How did you decide, hey, okay, I'm going to go into the Army now?
Well, because the plan never changed for me. From the outside looking in, it probably looked like I had no direction. It probably looked like this kid's gone off the rails, bro.
Sure.
He's destined for, the third option in Taft, which is get hooked on drugs. And you're going to see me walking on the streets with a backpack and my face tatted up. And I think that's what people probably thought. But to answer that question, though, it's just because the plan never changed. I knew that I was joining the Army. So I was like, I'm just going to live, bro. Like, I'm going to live this year of my life. I'm going to have fun. I'm going to hang out with my friends because this isn't going to be my life forever. And I don't want this to be my life forever. I knew that it was a temporary thing. So I lived it as if it was, much like life is temporary. So just live it. So sort of explored that year with the end goal of I'm doing this. And then, and then it kind of just got to a point where his stepdad was pretty over us being there, as you can imagine. And he's like, hey man, this party's over kind of thing. And I was like working at McDonald's, wasn't really doing a whole bunch. And then I was like, all right, this is it. And a kid I actually knew was also trying to join the Army. And he was like serious about it. I wasn't outwardly serious about it. Like I wasn't wearing like the Army shirts. I didn't have the backpack. Like I was still just me. But he was going to go talk to the recruiters. And the recruiting office is in Bakersfield, which requires like a vehicle. I didn't have my license. Well, maybe I had my license, but I definitely didn't have a vehicle. So I was like, hey, like whoever's taking you, dude, like, can I catch a ride with you guys? And so I did, dude. And we both went and talked to the recruiters together. It was pretty fluid, dude. Like from the time I stepped in the office, the recruiting office, to the time I was in the van heading to basic training was about 30-ish days. It was no more than 40. So it was quick. And I knew it would be that quick. So I wasn't super pressed on like, going to the recruiting office until I was serious. And I'm still kind of like that to this day. Like I'm not going to make a move unless I'm serious about it.
Yeah, it sounds like you had long-term vision.
For sure. Yeah.
Once you started that 1 year transition period.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What are some of the things that you learned through that experience that you quickly identified once you went from that experience into the military? What was that like? Did you look back and say, I wish I was still hanging out with the boys?
Yeah. At first I thought I messed up, dude. I thought I messed up, but we'll definitely get on that because the answer to that's kind of going to come later. But yeah, it was tough, but I think I really believe in the like quit while you're ahead kind of a thing. So I was like, this is just my time. So we did, we went to basic training, and when you don't really like get your phone or anything. And then once all that was like said and done, yeah, dude, like, you're on Snapchat, you're on Instagram, and you're seeing all the same people you should be hanging out with, like at the parties, they're at the bonfire, or they're like at this concert, and you're seeing that and you're like, oh my God, dude, I messed up. Why am I doing this? Like, I'm still so young. Like I could have waited 1 more year. To kind of fast forward, like I realized that that's not the answer. Like I didn't know it at the time, but I was paving the way for me and myself, rather than like worrying about hanging out with the boys, or it was time for my next phase of life. And everybody has their individual choice to chase that. It was just my time for me.
So you were having somewhat of what people call FOMO, fear of missing.
For sure. Yeah, dude. Yeah. And it was even like accentuated because I joined in November, right? And then they let us come home for Christmas break for 2 weeks. So I get to basic training, I go through that whole, indoctrination stuff, that all happens. And then like, barely a month in, all right, you guys are going home, see you in 2 weeks. And then you go home back to the life you just left. You've only been gone for like a month. And then you're really like, oh dude, I messed up. What am I doing? And then I had to leave. And I still actually remember like getting back from that leave and being in my bunk and just laying there, dude, like wanting to like just cry, because like I was so like, that was when it really sunk in, like, dude, I messed up. I made the wrong call. I shouldn't have done this. Dude, like I'm here, like my head's shaved. I'm in this weird bunk, dude, these really uncomfortable blankets. Like, what am I doing, dude? I'm in South Carolina, and that was tough, dude. But I woke up the next morning and just right back to business, dude. But that was a learning experience because now I look back, obviously, and it's kind of silly to think that my feelings were even that hurt, but I didn't know the long game. I didn't know about any of this. I just thought that I was making the right decision in the moment, which looking back, I did.
You're looking back on that. What did you learn about the dangers of FOMO? How can it like hinder your growth? Because I know FOMO is becoming more and more pressing amongst our generation. You're always seeing something else that someone else is doing.
Yeah.
You can always find a reason to put a roadblock in your vision. There's always a reason.
There's always an excuse for sure. I think a reason is kind of a different thing. But I think the answer for everything is within yourself. Like, what do you value? Like, and at that time, I valued bettering myself and creating my future and my individual path far more than I valued being at a party. Even though like there was an aspect of, dang, like, look at all my friends like on this Snapchat story, like, dude. But I didn't value that as much as I valued bettering myself. So that, I think that's the answer to that question. It's up to you. Like, what do you value?
Do you think that you see that conversation not happening as much with people internally, being like, what do I value? When people are making those decisions, do you feel like people could be better at making those decisions?
Dude, yeah. And it just takes a couple seconds of, like, it's not like some long drawn out thing that, you know, like, it just takes brutal honesty with yourself. That's it, dude. And it takes a few seconds to just go, what do I value? What do I want more than the thing that I'm afraid of missing out on, or the how much this may cost me financially? Or none of that matters if your vision is clear. And if your vision's clear, then that's your value. You value that. Even if it's something, for me, it was as simple as just creating a life for myself. Like, I wanted my own house. I wanted, you know, that. So it was just that simple. Like, I valued that long term more than I valued hanging out with the boys short term. It's just that you just got to be honest with yourself, dude.
That's a huge thing, because oftentimes if we were to look at what values are instilled in us, oftentimes they're not even our own. They are the expectations of our superiors growing up. It's kind of where we started this whole conversation.
Exactly, dude. Full circle.
It's pretty crazy. So where did you go from the military then? Tell me about that experience and some of the lessons and stuff that you learned in that.
Yeah, dude. So people ask me all the time, like, how did you like being in the military? Would you do it again? And the answer to both of those questions is I don't know. I think it was exactly what I needed at that point in my life to be sort of a catalyst for whatever was to come next. And if I'm being just really honest, I just wanted to do something hard. That's it, dude. Like, it wasn't really much more than that. I just wanted to do something out of the ordinary, something that I wasn't familiar with, and something that people around me weren't familiar with. I just wanted to do something that was hard. Yeah, dude. I mean, I think what the Army did for me was I don't feel like it taught me anything new. Not that I didn't learn, but I didn't learn discipline, and I showed up disciplined. It just, I'd say a lot of it was a reinforcement. It reinforced things I already believed in. Integrity, you know, leadership, honesty, being on time. Like, I already knew these things, and a lot of this was instilled in me at a young age from playing baseball. Like, to be honest, being in the Army is just like being on a sports team. It's the same exact thing. The team is more important than you. We're not done until the mission's done. And then if you fail, you try again. You practice harder. Like, it's the same exact concept. Nothing is for you anymore. What you do represents the team, and it represents, like, it's just everything. Every move you make is for the better of the team. And that was something I did not struggle with whatsoever, because I already believed that. Some people don't believe that, but I mean, that's what it is. So yeah, a lot of that.
Would you say that that's something that you carry into your life
dude,
now?
For sure.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. I'm kind of a little more, after being that way for so long, and I still have that sense of community, and that sense of like need to help others. Like, if an old lady like drops all her stuff, I'm not going to walk past her, you know? Right. I'm going to help her pick her stuff up. Like, it didn't take the Army to do that. But these days I'm a little more selfish, like, especially with my time. Well, we'll definitely get to that. That's a big thing for me, is time. I am my own team now. I'm never going to show up late to a client's appointment, you know, at this stage of my life as a barber. How I use that is I would be failing my team, which is me. And then if I do that enough times, it's going to reflect badly on the shop itself, even though it has nothing to do with them, because we're perceived as a team. So yeah, like, a little bit of that is still in me for sure. But mostly I do things really out of my own interest and what it's going to cost me, whether it's energy or, you know, finances. But that's it though. Yeah. I view myself, and you know what, actually, to really answer that question, like, in my relationship, yeah, I do, like, whatever's better for the team, which is me and her, like, that's it. Nothing else matters.
Yeah, that's really important.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
So yeah, I do still view things in that way.
I think different things in life, different scenarios, kind of, you can either lean into like self more or lean into the team.
Yeah.
I think that comes back to be super important, because we can't really do anything without others, but we can't really accomplish anything
balance,
without
Yeah.
ourselves as well. It's kind of a weird balance that we're always stuck on. So then what happened? So you went to the military, you already had the discipline instilled in you, which is, I think that's different than a lot of people who probably go into the military. I think the military shapes a lot of people in that regard.
And that's good if it does, if you need that in it. And I mean, it shaped me in a way too, That was the beginning of my adult life. So that was sort of how I shaped my personality, my identity as a young man, because you see, you have people that you kind of look up to, like your leaders, and you have bad ones, you have a lot of bad ones, and you have some good ones. And it's just, you just take things from the good ones and you learn things from the bad ones. Like, it's just that. So yeah, dude, it's a learning experience, just 24/7. Yeah.
What was the military experience? Tell me that phase of your life, because I know that it goes to so many different directions for so many different people.
So yeah, dude, being a soldier is honestly very easy. All you have to do is do what you're told when you're told. And in my opinion, like, that was my whole life. So that was simple for me. Like, just be here at this time in this uniform. Like, it is really no harder than that. Everything else is kind of laid out for you. That's it. That's all I did. I never did anything out of the ordinary. I wasn't volunteering for anything. I wasn't trying to be in the spotlight. I just wanted to act and look like everybody else. I didn't want to be on anybody's radar.
At what point did you realize that this is really just a huge system and they're telling you what to do? I don't have any free thought. I'm just following orders. Did you look at that and say, wow, this is almost how society works too?
Oh yeah. That was the Army is where I had that full revelation of, this is kind of just like a microcosm of society. Yeah. So literally, yeah, you nailed it, dude. Like, it took a little bit, like, cause you're looking back on it, like, you're pretty indoctrinated after basic training, and it's by design, right? Like, they say the same things over and over and over. Like, bring your tray to the food, bring your tray. Like, it's very repetitive. I mean, I don't think it's this malicious, but it is brainwashing in one way or the other. I mean, that's just a fact. So looking back on it, like, you are a little indoctrinated and you don't come out of that really questioning a whole lot. But once you get into the groove of regular Army life, that's when everything starts to make sense, because it's the same thing, dude, the same status, the same politics, the same, does this sergeant get along with his superior sergeant so that he can get recommended to make that rank next? It's so much of that, dude. It's the same exact thing. So at that point, I was just convinced that this is how the world works, and I want no part of this.
What was your thought process when you were starting to experience that? What was your next step in life?
Well, I didn't know. That's the thing. That's the answer is I didn't know. But I did know, like I just said, like, I didn't want this, and I don't want to exist in this atmosphere. But when you're being told the same thing over and over and over, that's kind of all you know. So I didn't know what was next. Yeah, I didn't know. I just knew that that's not what I wanted. So whatever I could do to not do that, I was willing to do. That's the answer.
We talked a little bit about when you were in 5th grade, having these thoughts and feeling like you were crazy or feeling like you were a total outsider. And I know that people who go into the military, they almost have this like epiphany where they start to see that, like, the rigid system really being played out in front of them, and they start to almost question things. Did you have any peers that you were able to talk to about this? Or
no, dude, it's the opposite. Again, same thing, dude. My whole life, I felt very alone. I thought, am I the only one that just doesn't buy into this, like, wholesale? Like I get it. And I wasn't like a bad soldier, and I wasn't always like defying my superiors. I actually never did that. I just, again, everything with me has always been internal. I was internally like digesting this and like, yeah, dude, I'm not buying this, dude. But you can tell everybody else is. So like, am I wrong? Am I in the wrong spot? So yeah, no, there wasn't a lot of people to be like, it wasn't that serious. Like, I just knew that I was there to experience this for what it was, good or bad, and just be done with it. I just knew that was my starting point. I knew that wasn't my end goal going into it.
It seems like a matrix and a very...
it is.
Firm,
it's the matrix, bro.
It's the matrix.
The matrix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it trickles down into societies.
Yeah,
and
it does, dude.
So much of our Western culture is kind of developed in that. So I'm curious, the day you got out of the military, what was going through your head?
Again, dude, I didn't know what I wanted to do. It's also sort of important to note that I had what's called a combat arms MOS. That means you're not good for a whole lot other than, I mean, this is what they say, at least, like when you're getting out and you go through classes, they're like post-transitioning classes. They have lots of like law enforcement entities talk to you, and as again, a classroom environment, they're not like talking to me, but so you start to build this again through repetition. You start to just believe, well, maybe this is all I'm cut out for, because this is the only life experience I have is this world. And they're telling me how this translates to that world. And I'm on my way out of here and I need an option.
Mm-hmm.
So I did honestly really, really buy into law enforcement is the next step for me. And I did buy into that 100%. Like I was made up my mind, like I'm going to be a police officer because that's just what I wanted to do at that time. And that was the only thing that really seemed reasonable, you know, because again, I'm chasing that. I probably should have said this a long time ago, but all of this comes from chasing reliability. I want stability. I want a good income that's reliable. I want my benefits. I want the retirement, dude. I just like, because that's all you've been told. And even though I chose kind of the unconventional route by going to the Army to do it, it's still relatively, I mean, it is a conventional approach, but just not from my limited perspective from the way I was raised. So yeah, dude. So I'm still seeking that reliability, even though I just like told myself, like, how do I get out of this system? I was ready to jump back into another one because I thought that was going to be the answer. Like, oh, I can make a living as this. So yeah, dude, my gears just started shifting. And at the time, so there's 2 prisons in Taft, and at the time, my grandpa was the lieutenant of one of them. One's a federal and one was a state. They're both closed now, so none of this really matters. But which is funny. But so I'm like, that's my foot in the door. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to get in the correction system, and this is going to be my stepping stone to law enforcement. And I was stoked, dude. Like, that's what I wanted to do. So I get out. I kind of just took about a month off, just doing kind of nothing. Just getting, you know, my stuff was still in transit. So getting adjusted to being a civilian again, which I didn't think would be a thing, but it's totally a thing.
How'd you handle that?
Yeah.
How'd you handle the transition?
Well, I didn't expect it. I thought, because they say that, they're like, oh, like the transition. I'm like, dude, shut up. Like, I never even really bought into this, so there is going to be no transition. But there still was, I think just slowly but surely, you know. And then I was also sort of ready to take those steps towards being in another paramilitary organization. So I wasn't super prepped for a transition. The transition actually came kind of later. So I take about a month off. And then one of my friends, and then I just got bored, dude. I'm like, I need a job until this thing, because you have to go to like an academy. It's kind of a process to become a correctional officer. So I'm kind of waiting for all these things to fall into place, and I just get bored. And my friend at the time was like working for the city, just like whoever like mows the lawns at the parks or whatever that job is.
Okay.
You know, just like a city worker. And he's like, dude, just drop an application. Like, we're always kind of hiring. Like, it'll be cool, dude, until you can do this. I'm like, all right, cool. So I drop an application at the city. I'm driving away and I'm getting a phone call and I'm like, dude, this is weird. This is a Taft number. So I answer it and they're like, hey, we just saw your application that you just turned in 10 minutes ago. Like, do you want to come in for an interview on Thursday? And this is on like a Monday or Tuesday. I'm like, yeah, dude, sure. So I'm thinking I'm about to be just like cutting grass. It's all good. So I get called back for this interview and there's like people in like police uniforms. And I'm like, this is weird. So they're like, how do you feel about working in a prison? And I'm like, well, that's funny you would ask because, you know, I'm planning on being a correctional officer. And I named the other facility because I didn't even really know about this one at the time. And they were all kind of like, okay. So I get hired as a maintenance crew. Long story short, I do that for a little bit inside the prison. And then a couple months into it, the captain is like, calls me into her office and she's like, do you still want to be a CO? And I was like, yeah, of course. So they send me to the academy. It's like 6 weeks, whatever. I do it. It's fine. And then and now I come back into the same facility, but now I'm a CO. And wouldn't you know it, same thing, status, politics, social climbing. It's a popularity contest in there, bro. Like, it was stupid. And I realized like very quickly, like, this was not for me. Again, this is like a recurring theme. So I was like, man, I got to really get out of this. Like, yeah, dude, my gears just started turning, but I was just kind of lost, dude, because I'm like, this is it. Like, but I was like, I know I don't want to do this forever. Yeah. So that's kind of what came after that.
How long were you doing it?
Dude, under 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I did that. And then cutting hair has always, it's worth noting that like cutting hair, or actually I should say doing hair, because I wanted to actually be a hairstylist. I never intended on being a barber. So doing hair is still in the deck of cards for me. But it's just so deep in the back of my head that it's not on the forefront. I'm not thinking about it. Oddly enough, in this prison, there are inmate barbers. And it's a 2-level facility, and there's barbershops on both floors. So no matter what deck I'm working, these guys are going to cut hair at least once a day. You know, there's certain inmates that you're cool with, you know, you can just kind of hang out with, talk to, whatever. You know, I'd go down there, they'd check out their equipment, and then I just kind of like watch them, dude. And I'm like, that doesn't look hard at all. And then my gears and I think I told one of my partners, like, that I was on deck with at the time, like, yeah, dude, I think I'm going to quit this and like go cut hair. And then it was just something I said. Like, I don't really ever like talk out of my ass, but at that moment I was just kind of like, it was something I said to pass the time, because like, you know, shifts are long. Like, you're stuck with one person for 8 hours and you got to talk about something. So didn't really think too much about it. there was a really, really stupid incident that happened. I'm literally not even going to go into it. It's so dumb. It's within my first year. So I was on a probationary period. So I just got let go. Like, for lack of a better term, yeah, I got fired. Fine. But I had already made my mind up that this is not what I want to do. I want to have full control of my life. Like, at this point, I'm so fed up with this matrix, dude, that I'm living in, the fixed income and the being told, and the status of all of it. But really a big thing for me was time. Like, their thing was like, at the prison, it was like, if you put in it for 2 weeks in advance, you'll get it. No big deal. I put in something that I really wanted to do about 3 weeks in advance. It's creeping up about a week out from the thing. And I'm like, hey, did that ever get approved? And then it got denied for no real reason, or so I thought. But the reason it got denied was because everybody that was in sort of the clique and the cool kid crowd in the facility, they had planned a trip where they were all going and they didn't care. So my leave got denied so that somebody else's who was in that clique could get approved so that they could all go to this thing together. And that was, dude, I know it sounds so small, but I'm the kind of person, I take things personally, dude. I really do. And I was just like, no. This is the last time somebody will have control over my time on this earth. And I know that sounds dramatic, but that's exactly how I think. It really is that true to me. So I get fired, whatever. And I'm driving home and I'm panicking, bro. I've never been fired from a job in my life. So I'm kind of sweating, but I'm also kind of in that mindset of get it together, find a solution. Let's get this going. And when I was sitting in the office before I got called in to get fired, I'm running through options. Because I know I'm about to get fired. It's pretty obvious. And I'm like, this is it, dude. Let's send it. Let's go to Barber School. Let's do it. You've been talking about it. You've been thinking about it your whole life. This is the time you're definitely about to get fired. So why not? So I drive home and I'm still sweating, still processing what just happened and trying to think of what's next all at the same time. And I get home and dude, I literally don't even take off my uniform. And I turn my phone on and I call the Barber School in Bakersfield. And I'm like, I'm interested in enrolling. Do you guys accept the GI Bill, which is the thing you get for being in the Army and that pays for school and it pays for you to go to school. It's honestly the coolest system that exists, a major blessing. And they were like, let us get back to you. I think we do. And then they got back to me a day or so later and yeah, we do. Come by and talk to us. So I enrolled and I started, my first day of Barber School was about 30 days after from the day I made that phone call to the day that I started Barber School.
Wow.
Yep.
That's something that's really cool that came out of the military is the GI Bill.
Oh, dude, it's so sick. It's so great.
You had a roommate who came out of the Marines, had the GI Bill and was putting himself through school.
It's great, dude.
Really cool.
Yeah. If school is your priority, it definitely wasn't for me. It's there's no better option to have no debt and to get paid a decent wage to pursue school. All that financial stress is pretty much lifted just from that alone. So it's really cool. I did. But, I put in the work. I did the time. So, I felt no guilt using that whatsoever.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So when you got into barber school, what was that like? I know, we started the conversation off talking about being a barber.
Now we're here, dude.
Yeah. So what is barber school?
It is a polar opposite environment from everything I had just been used to doing. Dude, it's I've never just been able to show up to my place of duty in jeans or just pants and a t-shirt. So there was that that more relaxed aspect. And obviously these are not kids who have any sort of a military mindset or any sort of discipline. It's just a lot of it was just kids who kind of just graduated high school and same thing, from their parents probably, hey, what are you going to do? What do you want to do? So they're probably, oh, fine, shut up. I'll go to cosmetology school. I'll go to barber school. I was 25. So I wasn't there to play games, dude. I was there. This is my next career. I was all the way in, dude.
Had you ever cut hair before?
Nope. Never even, I didn't even know how to turn on clippers, dude. I didn't even do my first haircut until a month or so into barber school, maybe 2. Yep. But again, dude, it's the value thing. So one of my favorite questions on the prompt you had sent over was where did you realize barbering was your passion? It wasn't until it started to kind of happen, the cutting hair thing. It's the same thing we talked about. It was the value of what can I use as a vehicle to get away from the life I just came from? And at all costs, I will learn whatever skill is necessary to give myself the lifestyle that I have a vision for. And at this point, it was very clear. I didn't want to work for nobody. I wanted to have tattoos wherever I wanted them. And I didn't want to have any restrictions on what I could or couldn't do as far as that. And barbering that was it, dude. That was it. So yeah, dude, I went for it. And I didn't know anything about cutting hair, but I didn't need to because I knew just the kind of person I am. I'm I'm sick, bro. Like, I'm obsessed. Like, if I want to do something, it's going to happen and nothing's going to stop me.
It sounds like you have a survival instinct, the way you mentioned, like, I'm going to use this as a vehicle to get away from what I don't want to be doing. And that's something that you see that's built into people who have that survival instinct. So I'm curious, when you look back at everything we talked about, childhood, high school, going into the military, do you feel like you were sharpening that survival instinct so that when you made this decision, you were like, I'm going to hit this full on, I'm going to become the best that I possibly can be to really get away from what I said I want to get away from?
Yep. So on an unconscious level, that was happening. It's not like I woke up every day like, I'm going to do, but that is exactly what was happening to me. I wasn't aware of it. But that sword was getting sharpened behind the scenes, dude, for sure. And every step, everything you just mentioned, everything we have just talked about was one step closer to this realization of this clear vision of now it's time to do what everything was just one step closer to this. Those were not the end goals. This is. Yeah. But it took all of that to get to this. I would have never known, but you have to fail. You have to try or you'll never know. So all that was just good failure, in my opinion.
Failure has a really bad rap.
It does. It's so weird, dude. Nobody wants to. Like, I love it.
Mm-hmm.
I love it, dude.
Yeah, I don't know if you really can learn without
You literally
failing.
can't, dude. You literally can't.
There has to, I don't think you can.
Yeah.
To people who were on a similar journey, what would you say to them if they are feeling maybe a little lost or confused? You talked about sitting on your bunk bed in the barracks thinking, what am I doing? Like,
Yep.
What would you say to those people who might be having those similar thoughts?
I would say chase your values first. You do something you love, you chase something that you believe in, the money will come. But people who chase the money, you end up in that rat race, dude. And that's cool, dude. Like, if you got kids and you got to make a living, do what you got to do, bro. There's something extremely admirable to that. That was not my personal experience. So I had more leverage to take control of my life. So that's the answer, dude, is have a clear vision. Have a vision of the life you want. Have a vision of the job you want. That, like, whatever it is that you value, pursue that. Find the vehicle to get to that thing. And you don't have to know what you want to do. You just have to know what you want.
With being a barber now, what is your vision? Like, what is the vision for you talked about your values. You talked about how it's important to follow those, not give up your time. What's your vision with what you're doing now, what you're creating?
Yeah. So from the beginning, dude, it's always been sustainability and consistency. The interesting thing about being a barber is you have to perform every day. You do. Like, even though, like, I've done enough haircuts to where, like, it's a fairly subconscious process for me, I'm still showing up to work wanting to be better than I was yesterday. A lot of jobs aren't like that. You just have to show up, perform, you're going to get your paycheck. So right now, dude, it just looks like being consistent, being reliable, and, coming from, I was cutting hair in Bakersfield before this, and I have now only lived in SLO for barely a year. So I'm starting from scratch, bro. Every time you move locations as a barber, even if you just go to another shop in the same town, you're starting over, bro. Like, you're starting from scratch. It's day zero. Hey, it doesn't matter that I cut hair for a year and a half before this. Nobody cares. Nobody knows. For me, like, my first shop, I got to walk so I could run here in SLO. So I'm just building, dude. Like, it's just, as far as barbering is concerned, I'm still in my first year. So my focus is just building, being consistent, being reliable. And dude, that's it. Like, I'm not caught up in the hustle, hard grind, because you will burn out. Mm-hmm. I do not like that mentality. And there's so much of that in barbering. And I get it, bro. Like, there's a time and a place to grind, bro. Like, when I was in barber school, it was grind mode because there was a fixed amount of time on that objective, right? It was, I start and I graduate within a year. And that, dude, it was grind mode. It was early mornings. It was late nights, plain and simple. And it was learning a new skill. But now that that's over, I'm in the long game. It's just sustainability, bro. Because consistency and sustainability beat hustle and grind 24/7, 365 days a year, bro.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So what are some things that you do to maintain that?
It's worth noting that I do have OCD, but it's everything. I make my bed in the morning. I go on a walk. I drink my coffee. I watch some form of content to where I'm learning something or engaging. So there's that. There's the behind the doors aspect. And then when I get to the shop, it's just something it's as simple as I set my station up the same way every time. I make sure it's clean. I set it up the same exact way so that my product can be consistent if my tools aren't consistent. If everything is the same, I get to work at the same time every day. I put my tools in the same spot every day. I just largely it's building consistency on those small things so that when it comes time for the thing that matters to be consistent, which is the haircut, it's already there, dude, because I just did all of these steps before I got to this point. It's just that, dude. It's just little things.
Do you feel like you developed those through your life, or was that something that you've always had?
It was, again, dude, I'm a very like intuitive person. So I do always what I feel is right in the moment. So it probably came from that. But yeah, it would be wrong to say that the Army didn't give me that a little bit, But I did read, I know this is like the most popular book in the world now, but Atomic Habits by James Clear, I think. And that really reinforced that mentality for me. And again, dude, I carry that like a disease. Like it's for real. Like I really live by that because it's true, dude. It can't not be true. If you're consistent at everything else you do, how can you not be consistent at the thing that matters?
When you look back at your life and you look at the consistency you had, it seems like you've been consistent in just following, maybe not being consistent in a career or consistent in say, but you're following your values. If you're consistent with following your values, it seems like things just always work out.
It's crazy, bro. It's crazy how that works. You just gotta, just like the last question, just follow what's important to you. That's what values are. It's what's really important to you. So you follow that, you're already on the right path. If you're chasing girls, you're chasing money, you're chasing status, that's the wrong answer. In my opinion, that's the wrong answer, bro. Because you're chasing things that are out of your control. The values are within your control, bro. You invented them. Just follow it. Just do it.
Yeah, so the discipline and the chasing and the hustle and all the things that most people push outward, you should really be hustling and chasing and
all the answers are
committing to your values.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Well, in terms of your future, what are you looking forward to in the coming years? What is your current vision aside from, continuing to chase your values? What's your current vision?
Yeah.
And what are you looking to accomplish?
Pretty much the same answer as I'm just in my sustainability phase and I'm in my just laying the path for a good, long, healthy career as a barber. That's really it. I really believe in focusing on just a minimal amount of things so you can be very good at those things. What I don't want to go do is dip my hands off in a bunch of different projects thinking that that's the next hustle or that's the... Because I've done all of this work, dude. I've quite literally spent my whole life to get to this moment, to chase my values, for this light at the end of the tunnel that I didn't know existed. And now my objective is just to be grateful for every opportunity I'm presented. And it sounds overly simple, but dude, just to wake up every day and just to live my life with my girlfriend now and just be the best I can at that and be the best I can at work. My goal is just to be the best me, the best version of myself that I can every single day.
So you mentioned you have a girlfriend?
Yeah.
How is your mentality mesh with hers? I mean, love is part of life, and it's when you've had an experience like this and you're on a path like this, it seems like love becomes something that you know what you want at this point. You're very aware of yourself.
Yeah.
So how does love play into this version of yourself?
Very easily, bro. Because when you're honest with yourself, by default, you're honest with other people. So you're not setting any false expectations. Everything's right there on the table. So it's actually much easier than just pretending to do something or be something you're not. Dude, she's great, man. She's growing. And I love to see that every single day. Now I tell her this all the time, I have pursued everything I've ever wanted. It's your turn. So whatever she needs for me to do to support her in her journey, that's now my journey. Back to the team thing.
Sure. I want to circle back to, growing up, you experienced, it seems like, the lack of communication in the family dynamic.
Yeah.
And that played into who you've become. And we don't want to perseverate on the past and play the victim and look back and say, I'm not a good communicator because I didn't see that growing up. But talk about the importance of what you learned and how you're going to use what you may have missed out on moving forward in developing a relationship, whether it's with your girlfriend or with business or with life or with your own time.
That's a great question, bro. And again, sorry for the overly simple answers, but the answer is just learning. It's pretty simple. I saw that happen and I saw the lack of what was happening. And I said, that's not okay. I have a higher standard than that. So I'm going to do the opposite, not out of defiance, but because I know that that's the right thing to do based off my observation, if that makes sense.
In terms of communication, because communication is kind of the solution to everything, right? What would you say that you focus on in developing really good communication skills so that you can exceed the experience that you had growing up, or maybe put yourself and your future family on a different path?
I consciously choose to not be like what I observed growing up, not only just from my parents, but from everybody.
It seems like you have a pretty solid core that you follow. There's an core identity that if I follow, and if something comes at it that deviates from the way you feel like it should be, you just deflect it and say that's not how I'm going to be. I'm not.
Yeah, I mean, literally exactly that. I see behavior I agree with. I use that for myself, and I see behavior I don't agree with, and I discard it. I go, yep, I'm not doing that. Because what that does is observation creates self-awareness. So whenever I find myself in a moment, it's sort of like you get to pick one. And I see that, the thing that I don't like, and I go, well, I'm not going to behave like that because I do not agree with that thought process or the way that they handled that. But I did see this person handle this great, so I'm going to do that. However that applies to this situation. It's just that, dude. Just learning and being aware, bro. Like, that's it.
It's hard when you're confined by the matrix, though, to be aware.
It's impossible.
It's impossible,
it's
right?
almost impossible. Nothing's impossible, but it's almost.
It's nearly impossible when you're following the expectations of something that has been so ironed out in front of you that you can't really think for yourself. And
when you're following the expectations of something else that's been in front of you, you're by default chasing the values of that thing. You didn't even create those values. How are you chasing them? That's weird. Like, you didn't even, that's not your thought process. That's someone else's. If you align with it, which is, I feel like, extremely rare, then great. But I'm very big on just thinking for yourself, dude. I don't like the mindlessness of life, dude. Just think, dude. Just think for yourself, you know? Yeah.
That's what makes us so different than any other species, really, right? Can't humans?
Yeah, like, we're conscious. Use it.
Yeah.
Just stop.
Yeah.
Stop and think, dude.
There's a level of discomfort, though, I think people go through when you do question your own current beliefs. So I understand why it could be difficult for people.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, no, it's the most uncomfortable thing you can do is question what you believe in. I get that, dude. But I think that's kind of always been, if I'm being just honest with myself, I think that's always been sort of like a superpower of mine, is I've never really been overly attached to anything that I wasn't willing to question. Still to this day, like, I question things like, why do I think that? And then I may even give myself an alternate perspective that I have heard in the past or something, and then I still might walk, like, I'm not saying to, like, sit and, like, talk to myself out loud, but internally, dude, it's always dialogue. It's always, like, I am my own best friend and I'm also my own worst enemy because I'm constantly just putting myself in check. I never just latch onto something and then that's it.
That's really good.
My values are one thing I'm for sure not willing to fold on, but I think if there's going to be one thing you're not going to fold on, it should be that.
Yeah, your values are like a subset of yourself.
Yeah.
It's the externalities, I think, that we're referring to here. Where can people find you on social media? Where can people find you online?
So I go by Bryce Cuts Hair on Instagram. Pretty simple. That's where you can see all of my work.
Right on.
So that's what I got going on.
Cool. Anything you want to leave the audience with before we wrap this up?
I honestly think we covered it, bro.
We did?
I think we covered it.
Good deal.
Like, if I did say anything, I would just be repeating something that we already said.
Sweet. All right, guys, check us out on Instagram. Anyone you know who might be in the barbering world or could hear Bryce's story, share it with them. Join our Discord community. Check us out at scalingcreator.com, and we'll see you on the next episode.